At least would have tried to prevent her from going to the police and telling her story to the police if she agreed to confidentiality, probably for a certain amount of money. Whatever happened is I believe negotiations were going on towards the end of, having a confidentiality agreement, essentially having a so-called confidential investigation by the church. What happened is the 4 or 5 of the women who had been told by the victim the allegations of rape decided that the best thing to do was to make this known to the police and let the police investigate it, and if it came down to it, arrest Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell for rape. And that's exactly what happened. The women did report to the police the fact that this teenage Tibetan refugee was claiming to have been raped by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell, basically claiming to have been sexually exploited over a period measured in years. And the police did investigate, and Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell was charged, tried, and convicted of forcible rape and also unnatural rape. I think everyone knows what unnatural rape is. I'm sure they can figure that one out. Actually, there could be a little twist on the unnatural rape thing. Amongst other things found in Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell's little love nest was a sex toy kind of thing that had Jesus on it. It wasn't described in great detail in the reports, but essentially some kind of sexual device in the form of Jesus Christ. I'd say that's pretty darn close to blasphemous myself. Funny how the Unitarians are accusing me of blasphemy for blogging about Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell's rape. If anyone's guilty of blasphemy, it's Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell for using a sex toy with an image of Jesus on it on his rape victims. Anyhow, getting back to Amber Dawn Belshas, in involving herself in the erasure of my chalk slogans, she's not just passively complicit in the Unitarian Universalist religious community's immoral and unethical and borderline criminal misuse of Canada's blasphemy law and legal bullying intended to hide pedophilia and rape, but she is a knowing and willful participant in attempts to conceal this from the public. I'm trying to tell the public about this with my chalk slogans, with my picket signs, with my blog posts, with my tweets, and so on. So when you involve yourself in erasing my chalk slogans, you're hiding the truth. You're hiding what I'm saying about Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse, and more specifically about the Unitarian Universalist religious community's misuse of blasphemy law to hide pedophilia and rape. Amber, see, that's where I got mixed up between Ann and Amber. So Amber Dawn Belshas, Belmar, sorry. See, I'm getting, yeah, I think it's Amber Dawn Belmar. There's a Belshas street in Montreal that I got slightly confused with. So Amber Dawn Belmar, if I remember correctly now, she came out with the president of the Unitarian Church of Montreal at the time, John Ender, and what she did is she filmed basically a police intervention. The police were called. This was, I believe, hang on. Trying to remember what year this was. 2013 or 2014? I think it was 2013, maybe 2014. So yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. So yes, it's been that was the last time I saw her. So it's been 3 or 4 years since I've seen Amber Dawn Bellechasse. And this was the last time, or one of the last times that I saw her. Certainly the last time where I have video of her, because, you know, she was videoing the police interaction. Well, so was I. If you go to YouTube and you look for a polite, professional SPVM intervention, Unitarian Church of Montreal, you will find the video in question. There are actually at least 2 videos that have very similar titles like that, because there are at least 2 polite, professional SPVM interventions that I recorded and said that's what they were, as opposed to all the ridiculous, foolish ones that include harassment, intimidation, and other bullshit. But there were 2 police interventions that I considered to be A, polite, B, professional, C, police just doing their job properly for a change. And that was one of them. Because what happened is, you know, John Inder and or other Montreal Unitarians called the police to essentially, you know, try and get me to be ticketed or arrested or whatever, you know, get them to do something about my protest. They came and they saw my chalk slogans, they saw my picket signs. And the interesting thing about that particular intervention is that they did not contest a single thing that I was doing. In the past, I'd had my chalk slogans contested. In the past, I'd had my freestanding picket signs contested and various other things. In the past, I mean, you know, falsely accused of blocking circulation on sidewalk and so on and so forth. All these bullshit, you know, pretexts for trying to get me to stop my protest, threatening me with tickets, actually ticketing me, even arresting me on bullshit criminal charges and so on. These 2 cops saw my protest. They did not dispute one single aspect of it. They agreed that everything I was doing was within the law, which is what I've always believed was the case. So they did not in any way dispute my protest. And they essentially, you know, I didn't hear what they said, but they pretty well had to have told John Inder, well, look, you know, everything he's doing is within the law. There's nothing we can really do here, which is the correct response as far as I'm concerned. But what they did do is they sort of fudged things a little bit, and I really didn't mind this, even though this is maybe the one thing they did that was a little bit off, but I didn't mind it at all because it was actually in my favor. After speaking with John Inder, all the while this is being filmed by Amber Dawn Bellechasse, they came to me and they said, look, you know, you have a right to have your chalk slogans. So they, if I remember correctly, they literally said, yeah, you have a right to do this, but they said that the church had a right to erase my chalk slogans. This is where I think they made a little mistake. I'm not saying the church doesn't have a right to erase my slogans after I've completed my protest, but, you know, it would have been wise for them to tell John Inder, okay, you can erase his slogans, but only after he's gone, because we don't want confrontation here. So, but what they did is they came to me and they said, you know, yeah, you know, they can erase your chalk slogans. And by that they meant like during the protest itself. It was very clear that they were essentially telling me that what was going to happen is that John Inder was going to erase my slogans very soon afterwards. And they basically came to me and they said, look, we don't want any confrontation. Well, the best way to avoid confrontation, as I said, was to simply tell John, well, you can erase his slogans, but only after he's gone. But they did not do that, which was fine by me, because I was only too happy to film John Inder as he was erasing my chalk slogans. So that's what happened. And a very nice video of first a very polite and professional police intervention in my protest outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal, which had one minor little error in it, but a little error that I was only too happy to have had made, because it gave me an opportunity to film Unitarian Church of Montreal Board President John Inder erasing my chalk slogans. I mean, what more could I ask for than video footage of a leader of the Unitarian Church of Montreal trying to cover up and hide such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, and the fact that his religious community misuses Canada's blasphemy law and legal bullying intended to conceal such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. I mean, this was gold. I was only too happy to film John into erasing my chalk slogans. So that video is available on YouTube. You can go look at it. One of the polite and professional SPVM interventions. And I have to say that since that intervention, there's only been a few others. That intervention, as I said, it was 2014 or 2015. Can't remember the exact date or even year exactly, but I'm thinking more 2015. But in any case, there's only been a small handful of police interventions since then. And the only one where anything somewhat negative happened was May 1st of 2016. So that's May Day of 2016, a year and a half or so ago, where a couple of SPVM cops, basically tried to intimidate me, basically told me that the church was getting ready to bring more criminal charges against me, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, fine, bring it, let's go. Only too happy to defend myself in court against these assholes. So nothing more came of that. And you never know. I mean, it's quite possible that some immoral and unethical Unitarians are trying to figure out some way to bring criminal charges against me, or whatever, but things along those lines. And I said, bring it. I'm only too happy to go to court. It'd almost be worth being found guilty of some bullshit crime in order to expose their hypocrisy. But I'm pretty sure I could successfully defend myself against pretty much any bullshit criminal charge that Montreal Unitarians somehow persuade the SPVM to have me arrested for, and to have some hapless Quebec Crown prosecutor actually prosecute me for. I say, bring it, let's go. What? It's always a good day when I stand accused of blasphemy by Unitarians. It's